This is currently one of my favorite lenses to use, the Nikon 17-35 f2.8 AFS ED IF. ED is short for extra low dispersion glass, which basically helps correct the chromatic aberration, and IF means internal focusing. It wasn't a lens that was on my list of lenses to get, but when I saw it on sale for $225, I just had to get it. But for that price, it also came with a minor issue. So when this lens was released in 1999, it was $1,600. I was trying to find the real price of it back then. If you Google search it, you'll see it for sale for $1,900 or $1,800. I don't know if that's accurate. It's definitely, I don't think it's not worth that much now. You can get much better lenses for that price. But from what I found, it was $1,600 brand new back in 1999 when it was released. And adjusted for inflation in 2025, that's a little over $3,000. Now you can find this lens for well under $400 depending on the condition it's in. I have seen some go as low as $200, but those are gone almost immediately. And the high end, depending on the condition it's in, I think I've seen these for about $800, which it just depends on the condition, so you can just kind of go from that. So when I first got my hands on this lens, it was actually more surprising to me of how light it was. It was a lot lighter than I imagined it to be. I've used the Nikon 28-70 2.8 AFS, and I thought that one was a lot heavier than this lens, about 745 grams, and that's about 26 ounces. So when I grabbed this lens, the first picture I took was from my Nikon D700, and the first thing I noticed immediately was how clear and colorful the image was. This lens definitely has a certain characteristic to it. I'm just going to talk about the specs on this lens real quick. It has a filter thread of 77 millimeters. The maximum aperture is f2.8. The minimum aperture is f22, and here's how it sizes up compared to the 18-55, the 35 1.8 GDX, the 50mm 1.8G, and the 85mm 1.8G. Will this lens work on the Nikon Z cameras? Yes, it will, but you do need the FTZ adapter. It will autofocus with the FTZ as well. It's one of the reasons why I did consider this lens, because it works for the Nikon D3000 series cameras, the D5000s, and if you have a Nikon Z system, just use the FTZ and it will autofocus with that FTZ adapter. This lens feels very solid in the hands, and I think on entry-level bodies it's unbalanced for me personally, just because it's on the heavier side, and when I did use this on my Nikon D40, it was heavier when you were kind of carrying it around, but it wasn't too bad. But if you do have like the Nikon D80s, the D90s, the D300, D200, or even the D7000 series cameras, this lens on those cameras feels very well balanced. And the pros definitely outweighs the cons. One of the positive things I like about this lens is the autofocus. It's actually pretty quick thanks to the AFS motor. But mine is squeaking. Another great thing about this lens too is the sharp image quality, and I'll get into that later in this video. It's very contrasty as well, and it's pretty sharp wide open at f2.8. Another great thing about this lens too is it's pretty affordable now. As I said earlier, brand new, this thing was $1,600. I bought mine for $225. You know, after taxes is like $250, right under $250. But still, for $250 for a wide angle full frame lens f2.8, can't really beat that. And onto the cons, one thing that I immediately noticed was just the weight. If you're looking for a lightweight lens, this might not be the one, but if you don't really care for the weight of the lens, I would say this one is either a pro or a con. I think this one's just a con, especially if you're used to lighter lenses. I've gone hiking with it with no issues. It was on my D700 when I was hiking around, and it was perfectly fine. I used this on my Nikon D40 when I was hiking there too, and it was perfectly fine. My hand didn't get tired. My shoulder didn't get tired from holding it with the camera lens. But for those that really want to carry light, I don't think it's going to be an issue, but it's just one thing that I immediately noticed when I picked it up. Another con is that it is a bigger lens. As you saw earlier, compared to the 18-55 and my other lenses, it is a little chunky. Another con that you'll see is the vignette. You can see the vignette pretty good in a super bright day. Personally, I don't mind it because you can correct that in Photoshop or a photo editing problem. So that can be easily cured. Another con is that this lens does not have VR. It does not have vibration reduction. So if you're doing slower shutters, you may see some shake or blurriness in your photos, especially if you're taking photos in low light situations handheld. The image quality from the 17 to 35 is actually much better than I expected it to be. Nikon definitely did something with these older lenses that gave it a certain characteristic to it. For sharpness, it's pretty sharp at f2.8, but once you step down to like f4 to f5.6, you can definitely get sharper images. During the day, I'm usually at f3.2 to f4. And when the sun goes down a bit more and I'm in a location where light is limited, it's very nice to have that f2.8. And talking about vignetting, during the day you will see it, especially if you're shooting at f2.8. As I said earlier, I don't mind it because it's easy to fix. Step it down to like f4 to f5.6 and I think it's going to be pretty hard to find. And also you can always crop it out too. So it's not a huge issue, but I think for those that don't want to deal with vignetting, you will definitely see it on this lens, especially on a full frame camera. On a crop sensor camera, you won't see it. Here's an image with my D40 with the 17 to 35 at f2.8. And since this is a wide angle lens, let's talk about the distortion real quick. The distortion isn't too bad at all. For a full frame wide angle lens, it's definitely not bad. My Sigma 10 to 20 is pretty bad for distortion, but that's a very wide angle lens for a crop sensor camera. If you're using this lens on a crop sensor, it'd be hard to tell what's distorted, as you can see here. And as for bokeh, wide-angle lenses don't usually produce beautiful bokeh because they're designed to capture a larger field of view. But I think at f2.8, you can get pretty creative with your shots, especially with this lens. Here's some examples. So how does this lens compare to the other wide-angle lens, the 18 to 35, f3.5, to 4.5. The 18 to 35 I have does not autofocus with the Nikon D3000 or the D5000 because you will need a DSLR with an autofocus screw drive to utilize the autofocus. Between the two, the 17 to 35 and the 18 to 35, I would just choose the 17 to 35 just because I like the f2.8. Constant f2.8 between the focal ranges. But if you're on a budget and the 1835 is there and you have a full frame camera, I would choose the 18 to 35, especially if you have a camera that will autofocus. So here are 5 things you should know about this lens if you're new to photography or to lenses. Number 1, the very versatile focal range, 17 to 35. So if you're on a full frame camera, it covers everything from a wide landscape to tight street scenes. So if you're doing street photography or you're trying to capture architecture in the cityscape, I really like this lens for that type of photography. Number 2, the constant f2.8 aperture. It's good for low light and you could get the shallow depth of field with this lens, and especially if you're limited on light. Number 3, the fast autofocus. I think it's just as fast as what the camera body can give you. So for example, if you have an older Nikon DSLR body, it's just going to be as fast as it can get with the autofocus system in that camera. I think with these newer mirrorless cameras, it's pretty quick, but you will see that it will hunt a little bit, but it's still pretty quick, especially for the age of it. And number 4, it's well built. It feels sturdy, but I think depending on the condition these are in for their age, they may be easier to break just because if it falls or if you knock it against something, it may break just because of its age. And again, it just really depends. If you're buying this lens used, it also depends on the condition it's in too, because you never know how well the user or the previous owner has taken care of this lens. And number 5, it's affordable in the used market. As I said earlier, often you can find these well under $400 depending on the condition it's in. If it's squeaking like mine, try to talk down the price as well, because it could be the AFS motor, or I think it's just lubrication and the focusing system, but you never really know if it's about to die or it's just squeaking from the autofocus. I've read from a couple forums that it could just be lubrication in the lens, but it also could be the AFS motor going out. I don't know. I took my chance on this lens for $225. I had to get it. I do not regret buying it at all. So who is this lens for? If you're on a budget and the newer and more modern f-mount lenses are still out of your budget, this is one lens I would recommend. For example, if you're looking at the 14 to 24 2.8 or the 16 to 35 f4 and you need an f2.8 lens, this lens is actually not too bad. I would definitely bring it for events and parties. It's a reliable lens for that situation. If you have a crop sensor camera and you want to upgrade your kit lens, this is an excellent lens that I would highly recommend too, especially for the focal range and the constant aperture. This lens is excellent for landscapes, street photography, architecture, and events, and I would even say for portraits as well. So yeah, overall, this is one lens I would recommend. Is this still good in 2025? Yes. Can you use it for portrait photography? Yes. Can you use it for wildlife? It just depends if that fits your style of photography. I know this lens has been used more for astrophotography and for low light situations like that. So I think that's what this lens was made for, just for the wide angle landscape type of photography. So if you find this lens and it's in good condition and it's on sale for $250, I think it's a great deal. I don't regret buying this lens even when it's squeaking. And even if the autofocus motor fails or it just fails to autofocus, the image quality from this lens is still gonna give me great results. So if you have one or you have had one, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear how you got yours and what you think about it. And if you have any questions about this lens, feel free to comment below and I'll try my best to help, and hopefully others can help as well. And I just want to say thanks for watching, and if you did like this video and you found it helpful, please hit that like button and the bell button and subscribe, because that does help my channel grow and it does support my channel as well. I really appreciate you watching this video, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I am on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can follow me there as well. And I just want to say thanks for watching, everyone. See ya.